Starting at a new company can be daunting these days, especially if you're doing a fully remote or hybrid role and 80% of the interaction is virtual. How do you go about crushing your first 90 days as a product manager when most of your interaction is virtual? Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Teresa and I'm a product director based in Melbourne, Australia. And on this channel, we explore strategies and tools that inspire us to keep growing in our product career. Today I'm going to share the top 5 things you need to crush in your first 90 days and how do you go about doing it virtually. So let's jump in. The first one is get to know the people. There are 3 groups of people: your team, your strategic partners, which are your stakeholders, and your customers. The purpose of getting to know your team is to build rapport, build trust over time, and understand how they like to work together with you. Now, starting by setting up an introduction one-on-one catch-up with everyone on your team. These are engineers, designers, data analysts, and other product managers. So you can understand a bit about their background, what do they value in working in a team and this company, and find out what they know about this company during their time for being there. And ensure that you leave this meeting with a recurring meeting set up with each one of them for the next 90 days. This could be weekly or fortnightly. Now, the purpose of this high frequency is to build trust with your team and keep the conversation going. Especially in a hybrid working environment, sometimes a conversation over Slack or other messenger tools or email can feel a little bit transactional. So a conversation virtually face-to-face can help you hear their tone of voice and see their facial expression to things. What I tend to find is that after 90 days, these fortnightly meetings will start to reduce itself organically to monthly or even ad hocly, because you've actually built a genuine trust and they know how to reach you if they need anything or vice versa. The next one are your stakeholders and strategic partners. It's also important you set up regular catch-up with them in order to work out what are their roles, what do they actually look after, how do their role plays into the success of your team, what metrics or goals do they actually care about, and how do you both work closely together to achieve the common goals. From there, you can start building your own private RACI, which is your responsibility, accountability, consult, and informed for yourself. If you don't have a list of stakeholders, ensure you ask your team members who do they speak regularly outside of the team. Ask your manager or your people leader to give you a list of few names. The most common people I usually start with are the marketing team, as they are usually preparing the go-to-market materials for your product. Or if you are a product platform PM, speak to engineers or a particular business unit the platform is serving could be a great start as well. The third one is customers, users of your product. This is the most critical people you need to get to know in the first 90 days. What you need to understand are, who are the people using your product? What problems are they trying to solve? What jobs to be done do they currently go through in solving this problem themselves? And what do they actually think about your product? Setting up a routine to block out time each day to look at the past research material, speak to the research team if you have one, or speak to your team or stakeholders to source as much as information as possible about the current customers using the product. And of course, try to meet with your customers and watch how do they use your product. Number 2 is get to know your product. There are 2 things you need to get a good understanding of your product. The first one is, how does it actually work? This is by putting yourself in the customer's shoes to go through using your product. Now pay close attention to the steps the customer takes and the alternative steps they take to complete their goal. How does it make you feel as a customer using your product? The emotional aspects of a product can sometimes be overlooked. So therefore, focus on the areas that make you feel frustrated, delighted, confusing, and write them down and write why. The second part is, how is your product constructed? This is about getting to know how your product is being built and what is the architecture layers. Now, you don't need to be highly technical to understand this, but it's important that you understand the different layer of how your data flows from one system to another. This will help you to understand how you need to also maintain your product system's health and ensure that it can scale over time. Speak to your technical leads and engineers to help you get a better understanding around the system and how it all makes up your product, and asking about the technical challenges and tech debt that they currently carry. Remember to look after your product's health as you continue to solve customer problems. You don't want to neglect the scalability and the reliability of your product. The next one is get to know your company's goal. There are two parts to this. The first one is, what is the overall company goal in the next 12 to 24 months? Ensure that you can find some sort of information, speak to your team about the company's strategy or the goals it wants to achieve in the short or long term. This will give you some context about the business itself and the strategic or tactical direction it's going towards. The next part is, how does your team ladder up to the company goal? Now, depending on the size of the company, the smaller this company is, you can ladder up immediately to the overarching company goal. However, with larger organizations, your team may have a bit of a sub-outcome it's trying to achieve that ties up to the greater picture. In order to navigate this, work closely with your other product teams to see if they have any examples how they ladder up their team to the company goals. Speak to your manager or people leader for guidance, and review any existing materials that you see around. The next one is get to know your core data metric. This is about understanding how you measure success of your product. Based on the business outcome your product ladder ups to, what are the core metrics or indicators you need to identify to ensure that you are driving the right outcome? Now, if you have a data scientist or analyst, they're the best source to have this discussion with, as they're deep in the data. However, if you don't have these resources, that's okay. Speak to your team about any existing data sets or stakeholders. Usually there will be a set of metrics, some basic ones that the team are reviewing on a daily, weekly or monthly to ensure the two aspects: the product is achieving the right outcome for the business and the customer, and that the product is in a good health in terms of system, and that the features that you're building out, that you have deployed, don't actually cannibalize each other. The last one is get to know the competitor landscape. How does your product position against the top three to five competitors? This is important to map out as you're looking at the environment your customers are surrounded by and how your product differs to what they are used to. You want to block some time out in the first 90 days to identify the top 3 to 5 competitors and start mapping out what do they offer versus your product. Ensure that you focus on aspects of the feature that they offer, workflows and steps. Look at the number of steps a customer takes to complete their task, the device capability that's available. Example, is it a desktop, mobile, tablet, etc. And the emotion that you go through using their product. And map all this out in a chart so you can actually see the comparison. To find out who your competitors are, most of the time companies have a pretty good idea who are their direct competitors or indirect competitors. And speak to your team leader or your leaders and team and stakeholders. However, if you cannot find competitors, then I suggest you understand the industry that your company plays in, and then Google the different types of competitors that's out there. Okay, to sum it all up, to crush your first 90 days, make sure you get to know the people, which are your team, your stakeholder, and your customer. Get to know your product. Get to know your company goal. Get to know your core data metrics that will help you measure what success looks like. And lastly, get to know your competitor landscape. If you find this video helpful or inspiring, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, if you have suggestions and tips on how to crush the first 90 days as a product manager in a new company, please share in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.